today's topic is startups. Since I moved to Dubai, um, I have seen a lot of activity in the startup world, especially in this part of the world. There is a lot of startups coming in, and I was at technology conference before. I've been to Expo. I've been to a couple of other events, which were particularly catering to startups and new ideas. Um, it's very exciting time to see the young generation coming up with the new ideas, and they have done a fairly well job living, given the situation they are in right now in this part of the world. They have done a fairly well job to establish themselves, create some sort of revenue stream, and it's not like what was happening 5 years ago. So there is much more maturity in the new startups, and they are fairly doing well. There are still a lot of work needs to be done. Today I was in one event, invited by some of the government entity to look at the startups. So I was very pleased to see there are one or two startups which is very promising, and especially young generation has a great ideas what can be achieved. And one of the things which I noticed in um, one of the things which I have noticed, those who are well connected with the Western world, whether on YouTube or whether on WhatsApp or whatever this mechanism, LinkedIn, whatever the social media or the mechanism they are using to connect with the Western world, they have much better idea in terms of executing their startups. And some of the founders, I met them, they have been to America and they understand what Silicon Valley is, when startup needs to do and how to create their pitch. So it's a very exciting time in terms of if we look at what's happening in the world, and especially new generation. I'm very happy and excited to see the new generation is taking a leap in terms of creating new businesses, and they are very mindful when they are creating a business. Not only they want to generate the wealth, they also want to solve the real world problems, like what challenges this world is the people of their country or region are facing, and they are very much focused on trying to solve those problems as compared to just trying to mint the money. And that's a very encouraging sign that the first time in last 200 years at least, this part of the world, eastern side of the world, has this idea that the money can be generated by solving the problems and trying to fix what's been broken in the society from so long. And that's very encouraging. I personally was very happy to see some of these youngsters who are very they have energy, they have ideas, they know what they are doing, and they are very much interested to solve the problem, and the money is the byproduct. And that's very encouraging to see the startup scene is changing now. Of course, if you start anything today, it's not going to be as much advanced and capable as some of the other part of the world. There is a disconnect between in terms of technology, in terms of knowledge, in terms of information, and the people who have experience to provide those kind of information. So that gap could be reduced over the period of time, maybe another 2 to 5 years. I'm very hopeful that it will be much faster curve or much faster progress in next 5 years than it has been in last 5 years. One of the major reason is, I think, COVID. After COVID, digital adoption has become a new phenomenon, and that also increased the knowledge sharing and as well as new business models, and people are more lenient to adopt technology. And when the people adopt technology, it become much easier to do certain things. Not everything, but certain thing could be easily adopted and could be done. In terms of bringing prosperity to this part of the world, or whether any part of the world, it's pretty much dependent on the intent of the society, right? What society is trying to achieve, whether it's the, even in America, the prosperity has unbalanced somewhat in the last 20 years, right? There is a gap between even the Western world. So, new technology, new way of doing business does not always translate into the fair market practices or prosperity shared across the communities and societies. It sometimes also go in the other way, which actually we do not want. So in terms of looking at the startups, so the focus should be how to bring more knowledge to these young kids, and they can make a difference. And I think they are very motivated. They know where to go to get the information, and they are willing to step outside of their comfort zone to make that happen, which probably their previous generation were not as keen to do. So I don't think people need to do hand holding to get them to where they want to be. I think it will automatically at one point, it will translate their own journey and they will figure it out. I'm very, very optimistic about the future of the young generation of this part of the world. I think they are far more connected. They are far more aware where the world is moving. And I think they are also far more energetic in terms of taking their own people to that next level where they think the world is moving toward. And I think having less gap, more technologically connected, having that fair share of information, which eventually will even be more. I mean, since the YouTube has made it very easy to provide the information what you're looking for in terms of video, that's the human learning process from centuries. People used to teach their kids, and then they teach their kids. Book came into 16th century, more adoption, right? So I think the video is a much better mechanism to teach other people, and that also going to help a lot in next 2 to 5 years. Since it's a high definition, you can show a lot of things. People can watch a lot of things. So technology-based innovation had made it very easy to learn new things and also to bring new ideas to the market. So the barrier to entry is low, but that's also create another challenge, which means you have a lot more competition now as compared to what used to be 30 years ago. So where to find this balance is pretty much depend. So there are, I think there are two type of startups which is happening in this region. One is, which is the copycat. So West has already developed something. People are trying to develop the same sort of thing here. They are just trying to localize it, and that's the entry to the market, bringing something which has already been done, successful model. They are just trying to localize and try to take, like, look at the Uber versus Cream, right? The Cream tried to solve the problem of cash payments, and I think that was very successfully they have done it, because at that time people didn't have much credit cards in this part of the world. And I think if they solve that problem, and even though they had like a 22,000 miles or more addresses and locations and maps and everything else, but that's secondary thing. I think the biggest problem they solved was the payment method and the payment channels, what they had. And the second type of startups are which are genuinely solving the local problems. They look at the problem, they look at it, diagnose the problem, and then they're trying to fix it by using it local methods and local available resources. And I met a very energetic yesterday startup guy, and they said, well, we're not going to be able to solve every problem, but we are trying to make the difference as much as we can. And I think that's a very right approach. If one part of the world is far behind from the Western world, there is no way you can take a country, a society into the Western world overnight. That's just not possible. It's just not possible. In 5 years, you can compete with the Western world or established world. You know, this is not going to happen. But it's a good challenge to solve. That okay, we are trying to solve the problems or challenges from the very bottom of the 10% or 20% of the people. And if you can make a difference for 20% of your population or society or country, that's more than enough, I guess. Then there will be a better way to solve those problems. Whatever the problems will be left over, you don't have to solve problem for 100% people in any country. You can solve, you can gradually solve the problems. You can take 5%, 6% slice of the population and you can solve the problem for them, and then work on top of that. Maybe at that time the new technology show up, or maybe there is a new way of doing certain thing, or maybe something else happens, right? People are more educated, people learn more, or something will happen. So in average startup, it takes about 7 years to become successful. And during the 7 years, if you look at these smartphones 7 years ago versus today, and the power of internet at that time in terms of bandwidth and the data metering, and that has changed, right, in this part of world as well. So you will have technological advantages within the 7 years if you're trying to solve something. So don't focus on trying to solve the problem for 100% people. Just take the slice which you can solve and just solve that problem. And then there will be a new wave of startups or new wave of technology which will help you to solve the rest of the problems. So stay focused, keep doing the things. I will check if there is any questions, and I would otherwise I will close it. I have been very busy. I'm working some of my own things these days. Since I moved to Dubai, I didn't get enough time to make videos. Otherwise, I would spare some time. Anyway, whenever I get some information, I try to share with the audience I have. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I will be more than happy to. If you have any question related to Dubai environment and what's happening in the UAE, I'm trying to do something in PropTech these days. I will let you know when I will launch officially. But like I mentioned, there are two biggest problem right now in this part of the world. And one is the liquidity problem in real estate, and the second problem is also the ownership of the average person. So if we can solve that problem for maybe 7 to 10% or 11% people in the world, that would be a huge, right? Because look at the more than quarter of the population of the world lives in this part of the world, in Asia. And if we can solve the problem for 7 to 11% of the people of this region, that will be very significant. So whenever you're doing a startup, I would just say to try to solve the problem for at least 5 to 7% people, as long as a big enough market, right? If the market is very small, if you look at Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, their population is so small, it just doesn't make sense if you're trying to solve a problem for 5% people of Latvia or Estonia, or those kind of countries where population is close to million or 2 million. But if you are living in a very prosperous country where there are a lot of human beings, 1 billion or billion plus or 300 million people, then probably 7-8% people, if you can solve the problem for them, that will be big enough. And if you have any question, post underneath, and maybe I will next week or following week I will do a follow-up and we can discuss any of the questions you have. For now, thank you so much for attending, and have a wonderful evening. Enjoy your day, and I will speak to you next week sometime.